Welcome to Business Elevated, a podcast from the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. We explore the stories and strategies behind Utah's thriving economy. I'm Pete Codella. At just 24 years old and still in college, Tanner Thompson took a massive leap of faith and purchased a 32-year-old screen printing t-shirt business. 11 years later, the shirt stop in Richfield, Utah, was named the 2025 Rural Business of the Year by the U.S. Small Business Administration's Utah District. Today, we're honored to speak with Tanner, owner and CEO of the Shirt Stop. Together, we'll delve into his journey as an entrepreneur and discuss his company's growth and success. Tanner Thompson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete.
Tell people how long you've been in Utah.
My whole life, I was born here, raised in Richfield. I left for a couple of years to go on a mission in San Diego, and then came home, went to BYU, but then kind of got drug all over the country doing summer sales, lived in Texas, South Carolina, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, everywhere kind of. So that was a fun summer adventure, but Utah is just unbeatable. It was always the goal to be here, and Richfield specifically, so it all worked out.
And I mentioned before we started recording, my mom is from Richfield. She's a Jensen, so our family has been there often. She's got relatives in Venice and Glenwood.
It's a good place, that's for sure.
It is a great place. Are there things you like to do in Utah for fun in the great outdoors?
I was talking to somebody else about this the other day. Sometimes the United States gets grief from Europeans saying, oh, well, we don't have walkable cities like Paris, like London and Prague, which is true. But especially in Utah specifically, we live in the outdoors. The accessibility that Utah offers is just unrivaled. Our house here in Richfield, I could throw a football and hit a little creek that runs out of a canyon. And a few times a summer, we just follow the creek up the canyon. There's zero other human beings up there. And the kids just play in the creek, and we find petroglyphs up there and Indian stuff. And that's just like our normal life, right? People outside of Utah travel from all over to come experience what is just super, super normal to us. And not only do we get to see it, but it's accessible to us. Like I said, we lived in Texas for a while, and 99% of all the land in Texas is privately owned. Most of our land in Utah is publicly owned. And so we have access to it. We can jump on a four-wheeler and go explore or follow up the creek, and nobody's going to get mad at us for trespassing. And I think that's what makes this place so special, is how beautiful it is, but then how accessible it is for us to access.
Well, you mentioned you've done some direct sales, and you did that for a while before you purchased the Shirt Stop. Talk about your path to being an entrepreneur and what inspired you to start.
It was kind of always my plan I wanted to start a business. That was the extent to which I thought through what I wanted to do, was I want to start a business. So I was at BYU, and for whatever reason was okay at sales. And I did that for a long enough time that I thought like, okay, well, I could start some kind of business where I sell stuff. And one of my cousins said, hey, you should buy the Shirt Stop where we grew up in Richfield. And I was like, well, I imagine that makes no money. A small screen printing shop in our town of 8,000 people can't probably do super well. But I looked into it, and I'm like, I would be taking a major pay cut from what I'm doing, making in my current sales job. But I had confidence, which I honestly did not deserve, thinking, I could make this business.
Because you were probably in your 20s, so you knew you could do anything.
Exactly. Just a dumb, cocky kid thinking like, I could sell millions more worth of t-shirts than they're currently doing. So anyways, I go down that road and I look at purchasing it. And I just know that if one of my kids were come to me and saying, hey, Dad, there's this business. Do you think I should buy this? And honestly, it was overpriced. And I would for sure say, no, it's a terrible idea. That's a bad deal. Don't do that. Well, I didn't take my 36-year-old advice, and I bought the business. It had 7 employees, which I believe 100% is why I was able to be successful. If I would have started something on my own and tried to wear all the hats that are required to get a business off the ground, I think I would have failed. But because I was able to walk into a business that already had 7 people, there was a lot I could focus on the one thing I was good at, which was sales. And then everybody else could do the things that I was really, really not good at. And that's kind of how I ended up doing it. And then we grew from there, and one big contract led to another, which led to another, and kind of got where we are today.
So I think it's been about 11 years. Talk about how your team has grown, how you've focused on those sales to drive the business.
We started with, like I said, 7 employees. We have close to 80 now. We started in just a small little, almost like a strip mall building of, I guess 1,500 square feet. And now between our Richfield location, our Lehi location, we're at about 45,000 square feet. A big part of, I think, that growth was letting the talent that was on our team do their jobs and not micromanaging people. I think entrepreneurs a lot of times feel the pressure to be like a prodigy, right? Or like, oh, well, he's the CEO, so he's got to have all the answers all the time. And that's not true at all. Sounds cliche, but good leaders let the people underneath them lead. For whatever reason, that has really worked out for me. There's one of the 7 original employees, there's one that's still here. I genuinely believe that if she weren't at the company, we wouldn't be here. She's an unsung hero that just did all the organizational work and made sure the customers were followed up with and made sure that pricing was correct and unsexy things that are really important for especially a young business to have.
Is your work pretty much the same in Richfield and Lehi, or are there different specialties?
It's a little bit different. Early on, as we were really, really growing, I could see like, man, if we really wanted to be large, I should just move up my family and move up to Lehi or move up to, the Wasatch Front, because it got to the point where that's more and more of our business was coming from. But living here and raising my family here was super, super important to me. And so, yeah, they are different. Richfield, we do most of our smaller mom and pop orders. We handle the local schools, and up north, up in along the Wasatch Front, it's more tech companies. We do a lot for influencers, and the scales of what we do are a little bit different, but most all of our customer service and the people that you deal with, if you do an order through ShirtStop, are with people in Richfield. And I would say probably 75% of like the actual production and meat and potatoes of creating the products is done in Lehi.
Do you have plans to expand further, or do you think that'll be it?
If you'd asked me that, I don't know, 5 years ago, I'd have said like, oh yeah, we want a location in St. George, Las Vegas, we're going to just keep growing. And we will keep growing, but it's different now. We have like a production facility down in Mexico now, and we do stuff in Asia. And I think that's where most of our expansion will go, is textile mills internationally, rather than more brick and mortar locations that people can walk into and place an order. We've expanded, on social media, and that's where our orders come through. And people don't necessarily feel like they have to pop into your store to place the order. So we're growing just like any, business. It evolves and changes and takes a different shape.
You've touched on something that is on my mind, and that's the internet, technology, social media. It seems like for your market and even for your distribution, like those tools have to be so helpful for what you're doing. How have you used them to market your products?
We really started and focused as like, we're a relationship business. And I think that has a lot to do with our roots here, because if we treat a customer poorly, I'm going to see them at the grocery store later that day. You know what I mean? Or I go to church with them or whatever. So we're really not focused on making a quick buck or getting a quick sale. Our roots really are in developing long-term relationships with our customers. With that being said, for a long, long time, we really did not utilize the internet for growth. It was, we do a good work and people referred us to their friends, word of mouth. And that was how almost all of our growth happened up until like just before COVID. We had a lot of really great clients who were like along the Silicon Slopes that were tech companies. And as soon as COVID happened, that stuff just shut down. I don't know if you remember, but in that world, like if you went to work at Podium or Canopy or one of these companies, to entice talent, they would say, hey, if you come work for us, we'll give you a free car wash at work every day. You can get a gym membership and we'll make you lunch and ice cream all the time. And one of the things that they would just throw out like candy was t-shirts and swag. And we were really tapped into the massive spend that a lot of these companies were spending. And when COVID happened, people no longer wanted free Dole Whip. They wanted to like work from home. The incentive to give everybody a free t-shirt every single day of their life went down. From that point, we realized like, okay, we've got to actually become like legitimate marketers. And so that's when we made a bit of a shift towards social media marketing and really like actually becoming legit. That opened up a big door for us to where we went from making essentially company swag to connecting with influencer. Influencer marketing became really, really big. As people are sitting at home with nothing to do and can't leave their houses, they're literally buying whatever their favorite influencer was telling them to buy. And so we ended up connecting with a lot of different influencers who had tons of followers, but didn't really have a great way to monetize their following. And so we strategized with them to, hey, why don't you create create an apparel line based on your point of view and what your followers love about you, and an apparel line that resonates with that. So that shift happened, and we just grew a lot from there. We still do a lot of that. And now as people have started to go back to work, we're now doing both. We work with a lot of social media influencers, and blue collar work is really on the rise in the US, and there's a lot of opportunity there. So yeah, we've covered a lot of gambits, but being able to adjust and not just get stuck in what you're always used to doing has been important for us.
Talk about all the different types of products. I know you do t-shirts. What else do you do?
The thing that everybody has wanted and has been really big for the last, 5 years is just hoodies. Everybody just lives in their hoodies. A lot of that is due to COVID, right? They just want to live in comfortable stuff. So we do tons of hoodies, screen printed, embroidered, and we do hats, shirts, and then basically really anything you can put a logo on. And then we do laser engraving, all sorts of different junk. But really like anything that is apparel related, we do.
How has your equipment requirements or spend changed over the years, from screen printing to embroidery to, like you said, laser engraving?
When we started, we really just had like a glorified DIY manual screen printing press. And that was what we used to make all of our stuff in Richfield. I mean, now we have 6 automatic, stupid expensive pieces of equipment that really just churn out lots and lots of product every day. It's fun. It's fun to see like where we started and where we are now. It's been important for us to be able to pay for that as we buy it. We're seeing people right now that use debt to just get all of their equipment. And that works while the machines are running. But when things slow down, if you can't pay for those machines, you're in trouble. And so we've tried to grow in a smart way and stay out of as much debt as possible.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking for the best place to grow your business? Welcome to Utah, ranked the #1 state for economic outlook 18 years running. Make the move to join global leaders in advanced manufacturing, aerospace and defense, life sciences and healthcare, software and IT, and financial services. With a young, educated workforce, smart tax incentives, and an unmatched quality of life, Utah is where innovation meets opportunity. Learn more at business.utah.gov.
You mentioned that a lot of the sales will go through Richfield. Do you feel there's some unique benefit to being in a rural area for the headquarters?
Whenever we get on the phone and people realize, oh, you're from Richfield, it's like, oh, do you know so-and-so Jensen? Everybody always knows somebody from here, or they came down here as a kid to, shop at Christensen's or go to Fish Lake or whatever. I think it makes it feel a little bit more personable. And like I kind of said, it's important to us to treat every customer like that. We look at the long game. I think a lot of people, especially starting up because they need the money, they're just, how can I make some money? How can I make a quick buck? I know that term's kind of loaded, but how can I make some money quickly? We always take the long approach. And I think a big part of that is because, like I said, the customers that we've always worked with, I'm at risk of seeing them at the grocery store later, that week. And so if I just say like, oh, who cares? Just print it, even though it doesn't look perfect, they'll never notice, or we'll overcharge these guys because we'll never have to deal with them again. No, the people we work with are our neighbors. And so that's kind of our mentality, is we treat everybody we work with like we're going to see them later that day. And maybe that's not true anymore, but it's instilled in me, and I try to instill it in the people that work here.
Certainly that integrity in the way you operate the business and that commitment to a quality product has to bring you repeat customers.
Those are who we rely on. Honestly, we're always looking for new customer. We're always finding and always looking to grow. But our growth is predicated on our customers' growth. If we're just cycling through people constantly, it's like an uphill battle. If we have a business strategy, it's find good people to work with and work with them forever. Because as their business grows, it grows our business. So we're in the same boat and we're properly aligned, especially, working with apparel brands like we do. There's some large brands that we work with, but they started really, really small. And when they came in, they were very needy and kind of annoying. And it would be easy to say like, oh my gosh, these guys, they're expecting the world. But, fast forward 5 years and they're doing millions of dollars with us. And had we taken the approach of nickel and diming them in the beginning or not seeing the big picture, we would have missed out on an awesome relationship and something that's really important for our company.
Can you talk just in general percentages, like what portion of your product stays in Utah and how much goes to the US and how much do you ship internationally?
We ship a fair amount internationally, especially with our influencers. We have an influencer that is Canadian based. So most all of the products we print, warehouse, and ship go to Canada. We've had to learn how to do that. We've got stuff that ships to Australia and then gets returned and then the customers take. So we have a number of sister companies that support the shirt stop. One is Wildcat Fulfillment. That's a fulfillment company that's actually based here in Richfield. So we're shipping hundreds of products out every single day, which started out as just shipping apparel, but now we house and warehouse and ship suitcases and toothpaste and all sorts of things. So I would say probably 70% of our business is still in Utah, but that number just gets smaller every year. We do quite a bit in California and really all over the US as well.
As you start working internationally, I would guess you're dealing with multiple and different shipping companies and processes.
For sure. And that's been a learning curve, dealing with customs, dealing with, all sorts of things that it's not just as simple as slapping a label on it and it gets to South Africa. Because when we ship to South Africa, we have customs issues. And so it's been a big learning curve, but been awesome.
The Shirt Stop was named the Rural Business of the Year by the U.S. Small Business Administration's Utah District at the National Small Business Week Awards ceremony in May this year, 2025. I was there. Talk about what that recognition means to you and your company.
Honestly, it makes me feel self-conscious because I get up there and get the award and whatever, but it literally has very little to do with me. We have awesome employees that are the reason that we've been able to be as successful as we have been. And I just was kind of there in the beginning. I did my job. I helped with sales in the beginning. We've grown that, but I'm just one of 75, 80, 100 employees that we have. And so it's an honor and it's awesome, but it really doesn't say that much about me. It says a lot more about other people that I get to work with.
Well, you own the company, so it says a little about you.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm the one whose name is at the top of the paper that they have to track down.
Are there state or federal resources that you've utilized, like maybe during COVID? Is there any kind of grant or something you found useful as you've grown the business?
During COVID, there was a lot of really low interest loans to help keep things flowing so we didn't have to lay people off. That was super helpful at the time. I think we received an EIDL loan and then a PPP loan. We made it able for us to pacify some of our employees' fears that they're not going to be laid off, that they can stick around and we can keep the lights on for them.
I'm guessing future growth, you just see more international growing and kind of maybe new technology that might help you with some new products?
Yeah, we really like California is actually an interesting place. California is kind of the textile cut and sew manufacturing area of the United States. It's just become so expensive to operate there. Then they've got issues with their labor pool. We really want to position ourselves to pick up a lot of that slack that I think is going to be left behind in California. So with that comes cut and sew operations in-house in Utah. There isn't currently a dye house in Utah. And what a dye house does is essentially we would bring in blank textiles and then we'd sew them together and then dye them whatever color they need to be dyed. There used to be a dye house in Utah, but it doesn't exist anymore. And I think there's a lot of dye houses shutting down in California. We would love to be able to start something like that here. And Utah just has more and more of a up and coming need for those kinds of services. And so we're excited to grow into that space.
Building out more supply chain, more manufacturing.
Absolutely.
As an entrepreneur, if there was one piece of advice you would share with others starting a business, what would it be?
This is the drum that I beat. I didn't start a business from scratch. I have since then, I've started a couple of businesses from scratch and I've bought multiple other businesses. Buying a business is so much easier than starting a business. If I'm in my 20s and want to become a millionaire in my 20s, I'm figuring out a way to buy a small business. And I'll illustrate that a little bit. The person that I bought the Shirt Stop from, he had owned and operated the Shirt Stop for 30 years, something like 30 years. When I picked it up, he had 7 employees and about $700,000 a year in revenue. That first 30 years was a lot of learning curve and just difficulty to get to that point. I was able to then just pick it up from that point and grow. There was already someone that handled the phones, already somebody that did payroll, already somebody that did the kind of basic things that a solo entrepreneur has to do themselves. So it's so much easier to grow a business than start a business. And there's so much opportunity right now. The baby boomers are retiring in massive numbers, especially in a small town. I would found that if you have owned a business for 20 years and you're making $200,000, $300,000 a year, you've lived like a king in rural Utah. That's not to say that your business couldn't have been making you, instead of $200,000 to $300,000, could have been making you $1 million to $2 million, but it's easy to get comfortable at that $200,000 to $300,000 mark. And you're raising a family and you've got, a life outside of work. There's a lot of people that are now retiring and selling those businesses that have more upside to actually still give if somebody comes in and grows those businesses. And there's more baby boomers retiring than there are people to buy them. So they can be gotten at a decent price. So like I said, if you're trying to become a millionaire, I think you work really hard for a few years to save up some money, whether doesn't matter, go on an Alaskan crab boat for 3 summers in a row, go sell alarm systems like I did every summer, go sell solar, do whatever you have to do to accumulate some money, because it does take money to make money. But if you can get some small seed money, the SBA has an incredible program where you only have to put 10% down to buy a company. You can walk in and a business will finance itself and you can be making real money in a relatively short period of time, all things considering, compared to starting a business from scratch. That's my soapbox. I think that's the fastest track to real success for the young generation right now.
What one thing would you say you're most proud of with the Shirt Stop, with your team, and what you've grown over the last decade?
That our team really feels like a family. Like I love where I work, and that it has been a team effort. There's not just one person that we can point to and say, oh, well, that was the reason we got where we were. We all have pulled together and grown together. I think we viewed ourselves like underdogs, that we started in a small town here in Richfield, and now we compete and with the big boys and with really anybody in the state of Utah and regionally. And so just proud of from where we came from to where we are now.
So based on your experience, what do you find most rewarding or inspiring about being a part of Utah's business community?
Utah's a really competitive place. So, it's on our flag, right? We're an industrious, busy as bees type people. Being successful in Utah isn't a walk in the park, because everybody's an entrepreneur here. Really, everybody is. If you have a good idea, look out, because somebody else could probably do it better. That's not the case a lot of other places. I've thought, man, if I would have started or opened this business in Kansas, it would just be on autopilot, because it's a very different mentality in the Midwest or in the South. It's very like, hey, get a good job and get good benefits and work the rest of your life, and it's great. In Utah, if you're an entrepreneur, like that's kind of, in England, they revere nobility. In France, they revere philosophers. In Utah, we revere entrepreneurs. It's difficult and competitive here. And so the fact that we've been able to be successful in Utah, I feel like is an awesome feather in our cap that I'm proud of, because if you can make it in Utah, you can make it anywhere.
We've been speaking with Tanner Thompson, owner and CEO of The Shirt Stop. We appreciate you taking some time to join us on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Pete. I appreciate you.
Here is a quick update from the Economic Opportunity Office for the week of August 24th, 2025. The Economic Assistance Grant application window is open September 1st to the 15th. This grant assists Utah businesses in promoting and supporting economic opportunities and provides services related to industry, education, community development, and infrastructure. Learn how to qualify and apply for this grant on our website. Don't miss this year's Apex Symposium on October 16th. Connect with prime defense contractors, the Department of Defense, and federal, state, and local agencies, including exclusive one-on-one time with representatives. To learn more about any of our updates, please visit business.utah.gov.
Thanks to our office marketing communications team for their work on this episode. You can find and follow us on social media at Business Utah. Please feel free to email us with feedback or episode suggestions at business@utah.gov. The Business Elevated podcast is published by the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. I'm your host, Pete Codella. Thanks for listening.
The views and opinions of podcast guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity or the state of Utah.